What's going on? I heard a loud noise. Emily had taken a shower with Ethan. When she got out of the bathroom, she headed to her room as if hiding from me. Concerned by her behavior, I stopped her only to find Emily's cheek was red and swollen. Faced with this alarming situation, I confronted Ethan, but he only smirked foolishly and wouldn't answer. The next day, deeply troubled by the extraordinary situation, Emily collapsed on her way to school and had to be rushed to the hospital by ambulance. I arrived at the hospital ahead of time but was shocked to learn a certain truth. Angered by what I found out, I decided to teach Ethan a lesson with a specific plan. Rushing to the hospital as if I had just arrived, I hurried to the doctor's office together with Ethan. My name is Lisa. I am a mother with a daughter in elementary school. My daughter's name is Emily. Emily is not my biological child. She is a precious memento left by my best friend. Emily's parents died in an accident shortly after she was born. No relatives wanted to take her in, and she was about to be placed in foster care, but I stepped forward to adopt her. I will protect her, so please let me take her in. Since Emily's parents had been cut ties by their relatives, there was no one to oppose the adoption. Thus, the adoption process went smoothly, and now I am raising her as a mother in place of my best friend. However, during the persuasion stage, my parents and friends were strongly opposed. You've never raised a child, how can you possibly raise one properly? Wouldn't it be better for the child to be with a foster family? Raising a child isn't something you can do half-heartedly. My friends kept trying to persuade me, concerned for us. But my decision did not change. Can you really raise a child? This isn't a game. I mean no harm, but you should leave her upbringing to someone who has the right environment. My parents never gave up convincing me until the very end. I had neither raised a child nor even properly interacted with one. Their concerns were natural. However, I confronted them with the strength of my conviction. I will never let her suffer. I will protect her. I will definitely make her happy. Confronted with my resolute gaze, even my stubborn parents had to concede. Eventually, they told me to rely on them if I had trouble, and they supported our life. Time has flown by since then. Emily has grown quickly and is now a student. She is beginning to understand right from wrong and is surrounded by many friends, living happily. The man who appeared in our lives was Ethan. Ethan is a colleague from my workplace and a dependable person. I work in the editorial department of a publishing company, and he is in the sales department. As Emily grew older, I started to put more effort into my work. I was entrusted with more tasks and began to attend business meetings and social gatherings. That's where I met Ethan. He is diligent in his work, so much so that it's surprising he's not married given his good reputation. Since I am single, others highly recommended Ethan to me. However, considering Emily, I couldn't just jump into a relationship. Moreover, Ethan has never been married. It's hard to imagine him raising a child, it doesn't seem realistic. That's why I didn't pursue romance. I lived thinking only of Emily. However, contrary to my feelings, Ethan seemed to have a different idea. I heard about Emily from a coworker. Ethan was actually open to considering a relationship with me. Honestly, I don't know if I can be a good parent, but I respect how you've been raising Emily, and I want to know more about you. I want to support you. Overwhelmed by his straightforward enthusiasm, I consulted Emily about this matter. Realizing how seriously I was contemplating it, Emily encouraged me, pushing me forward. I knew you were holding back because of me. That's why I'm so happy you talked to me about it. I want your happiness, and I don't want you to feel inferior because of me. Introduce him to me. I'll see if he's suitable for you. After Emily gave her okay, Ethan and I started our relationship. And everything seemed set for a happy marriage and life. That's what I thought. But reality unfolded very differently from the happiness I had imagined. The discomfort began when Ethan started paying excessive attention to Emily. Initially, they maintained a healthy distance, but they gradually began sleeping together and grew noticeably closer. Are you two going to sleep together again tonight? What? Is there a problem? After we got married, Ethan and I spoke more casually, and that revealed some things to me. His private demeanor was often domineering, and if I tried to express even a small opinion, he would give me a skeptical look. His glaring eyes wouldn't let me speak, and he'd get moody over the smallest things. I hesitated to assert myself at first because this side of him hadn't shown until after marriage. It's just that Emily is a young girl. Sleeping together every night seems a bit much. It's okay, Mom. Dad always tells me interesting stories, and it's fun. I tried to stop Ethan, considering Emily's age, but she seemed to notice my concern. Smiling reassuringly, she took Ethan's hand and headed to the bedroom. I watched their backs anxiously, but Emily said it was fine. I decided to trust her words and stopped interfering too much. However, his behavior gradually escalated. Sitting next to her at meals and holding hands wherever they went, almost like lovers. Recently, they even started taking a shower together, and I began to feel concerned for Emily's safety. Young Emily seemed untroubled, but Ethan's actions appeared distinctly abnormal to me. I might find that off-putting too. On my day off, I visited my brother and his wife. Emily is the same age as their daughter and attends the same school. The two of them were out at the park, so I took the chance to talk to my sister-in-law. She frowned and crossed her arms, deep in thought, after hearing my concerns. Yeah, I thought maybe I was overthinking it, so I talked to coworkers at work, but everyone just says, it's wonderful to have such a close father-daughter relationship. They don't really listen. Sure, it's good to be close, but there's an added layer of anxiety when she's not your biological child. Unlike my colleagues, my sister-in-law understood my concerns. She has been a real sister to me since she married my brother. I was touched that she understood my anxiety, and I leaned in, agreeing with her words. Exactly. She's also growing, and taking a shower together is a bit much. I've tried convincing Ethan multiple times, but he doesn't seem to listen. Feeling utterly helpless, I discussed it with my brother and his wife, and my brother offered to help brainstorm solutions. Should I ask my daughter about Emily? Maybe she's told her friends things she can't tell her parents. Could you do that? I can't help feeling like Emily is hiding something. While trying to persuade Ethan, I also tried talking to Emily. However, she stubbornly insisted everything was fine and wouldn't open up to me. Instead, she seemed to want me not to interfere, taking a cold attitude towards me. Lately, I've felt isolated within our own home. I was incredibly worried. If I find out anything, I'll let you know. Thanks. I had no concrete evidence, just a hunch, but it turned out my judgment at the time was not wrong, as events later confirmed. That happened a few nights later. After taking a shower, Emily came into the living room, trying to hide her face. What's wrong? Looking for something? Lately, Emily would immediately retreat to her room after taking a shower and hardly come out. She continued to avoid me, maybe going through a rebellious phase, but that day, unusually, she stopped in the living room and seemed to be looking for something in the freezer. When I asked what was wrong, Emily quickly grabbed an ice pack from the freezer and tried to run out of the living room. It's nothing. Don't worry about it, she said, attempting to cover her face with the towel on her head. However, as she ran, the towel slipped off and I noticed something odd about her face. Wait, Emily. Noticing, I chased after her before she could escape the living room, grabbing her hand and forcibly turning her around. The momentum made the towel fall off, revealing Emily's face, which shocked me. Emily, what happened to your face? Her cheek was red and swollen as if she had just had a wisdom tooth removed. It's nothing. I just bumped into something while playing with friends today. But that doesn't make sense. How can it swell like this without any bruising? Tell me what really happened in the bathroom. What's going on? I heard a loud noise. It was obvious Emily was lying. As I gently placed my hand on her shoulder and asked about it, Ethan appeared behind her. Hearing his voice made Emily flinch. Convinced something was wrong, I tried to speak to her. However, she shook off my hand and ran out of the living room. Seeing Ethan smirking, I felt a wave of disgust.
What did you do?
What are you talking about?
Don't play dumb. You did something to Emily, didn't you? Her cheek was swollen. What happened in the bathroom?
Clearly, Ethan was up to something. I didn't know why Emily was hiding it, but as her mother, I had a duty to protect her. Despite Ethan's intimidating look, I stared back unflinchingly, which he probably found amusing. With a menacing grin, Ethan leaned in close.
Did Emily even say a word about that? Well, you're free to suspect, but you should have evidence before accusing someone. I was just taking a shower with Emily, nothing more. If you think I did something, ask her yourself. But she won't have an answer, because I didn't do anything.
Ethan laughed mockingly and returned to his room. Following his advice, I went to Emily's room to talk to her, but she wouldn't communicate with me. Instead, she locked her door and rejected me. While I was worried about what to do next, the worst-case scenario unfolded. The next day, Emily collapsed on her way to school and was rushed to the hospital managed by my brother and his wife.
Emily!
After receiving a call from the hospital, I left work early and rushed to see her. Normally, I would have informed my husband Ethan as well, but for some reason, my brother and his wife advised against contacting him, so I went to the hospital alone. When I arrived at the hospital room, my brother, his wife, another doctor, and their daughter, who was also there, were waiting.
Mom!
Emily's face was less red than the day before, but it was still swollen and painful. Seeing me, Emily jumped out of bed, hugged me, and burst into tears. Her pitiful cries filled the room.
Our daughter was also homesick today. When she heard Emily was brought in, she told us what Ethan has been doing to her.
Let me hear more about that, I said solemnly, looking at my brother while holding the sobbing Emily. After hearing the details, I was horrified. Any affection I had for Ethan disappeared in an instant, replaced by growing hatred.
Emily, you've been enduring all this for me. I'm so sorry, Mom. I didn't want to be a burden. I didn't want to ruin your life because of me.
Emily clung to me, repeatedly apologizing, convinced she was a burden. However, that was not the case at all. As her mother, I hadn't noticed how much she loved and cared for me. Far from being angry, I was filled with remorse.
I'm a failure as a mother to make you think such things.
No, Mom, don't leave me. I'll be good. I'll keep being good and not get in your way. Emily! When we lived together, just the two of us, this never happened. Hearing Emily cry out not to be abandoned unexpectedly brought tears to my eyes. Emily has always been a bit clingy and unreserved. Somehow, she had driven herself to the point of fearing abandonment. Undoubtedly, Ethan was responsible for shaping her this way. Every time Emily uttered such words, my desire for revenge against Ethan grew.
Who would ever abandon their precious daughter? You are their cherished legacy. No matter what it takes, I will protect you. I won't let you suffer anymore. So, you don't have to endure this any longer. Just leave it to us, your family. We'll make sure he sees the consequences.
Hearing this, Emily seemed relieved. Sobbing until she could cry no more, and then, exhausted, she fell asleep. I made sure she was looked after in the hospital for the day. After Emily had fallen asleep in her hospital room, I asked my brother, his wife, their daughter, and another doctor for their cooperation. We decided to set a trap for Ethan. My brother and his wife agreed to the plan. And we immediately put it into action by having the hospital call Ethan. Ethan, having received the call from the hospital, left work immediately and soon arrived at the hospital entrance. I also pretended to have just received a call from the hospital and arranged to meet him at the front entrance. Watching from inside the car, I spotted Ethan appearing at the entrance and informed my brother. I got out of the car and rushed to meet him, noticing the color had drained from his face.
Lisa! Where's Emily's room? I know it. Let's go right now.
I followed him hastily through the entrance, where we ran into my brother and the doctor.
Lisa, Ethan. Are you Emily's father and mother? There's something important we need to discuss. Please, come with us.
The doctor and my brother led us to a private room. We sat down solemnly across from the doctor. Ethan, frantic, asked the doctor about Emily's condition without any suspicion.
How is my daughter doing? About that, we examined her body for a medical check. Do either of you know anything that might explain some marks on her body? What do you mean?
I questioned the doctor's insinuating tone. The doctor stared sternly at Ethan.
We found multiple bruises on your daughter's body. All of them seem to target areas that are not normally visible.
What? I exclaimed in feigned shock, and Ethan went pale. He started shaking uncontrollably, his mind seemingly blank.
We asked your daughter about it, and she implied that her father was involved. Ethan, was it? Do you recall anything?
The doctor kept his cool while progressively cornering Ethan with his questions. Ethan looked around bewildered. The doctor, not letting Ethan escape the conversation, continued.
This might have to be reported to Child Protective Services as a potential case of domestic violence. We need an honest explanation. Are you sure you haven't done anything?
The doctor glared at Ethan, who swallowed nervously and broke out in a cold sweat.
No, I haven't done anything. Are you sure that's your final answer? Ugh. Well, let me be clear. Your daughter explicitly said you have been physically abusing her almost every day.
Ethan was overwhelmed by the doctor's stern words. His face filled with despair as everyone in the room stared at him piercingly.
I never did such a thing. Are you still denying it? It's obvious from looking at your daughter's injuries. She didn't appear to be lying. There's no evidence suggesting you haven't laid a hand on her. No, that's not it. It was just discipline. I didn't mean it as abuse. I just wanted Emily to be a good girl, so I used some force.
Ethan, caught off guard, had slipped up. My brother, his wife, and I exchanged knowing smiles as we heard the testimony we had been waiting for.
Got all that on tape?
Yes, of course. It's all recorded perfectly on the voice recorder. My sister-in-law nodded, pulling the recorder from her lab coat pocket and showing it to Ethan.
Now we have conclusive evidence. Well done, and thank you.
Ethan, finally realizing something was amiss, looked at us in shock.
What is all this about?
Confused, he stared at the device my sister-in-law held out. We couldn't help but laugh at his reaction, further aggravating his distress.
You really don't understand the situation you're in, do you? It's frustrating listening to your usual arrogant remarks. What the hell? Explain yourself. Don't just laugh, explain. You said it yourself, didn't you? Come talk to me when you have evidence. So, I prepared this evidence showing how cruelly you've been treating Emily.
In that moment, Ethan seemed to finally grasp the situation, his eyes widening in shock. My brother and his wife looked at him with contempt, and the doctor gave him a similar stare.
Are you saying you set me up? It wasn't a setup. We just let you explain yourself. We did put on a bit of an act to bring out the truth about what you've been doing to Emily. It's true I had heard about the situation from Emily herself.
No lies there. Ethan felt cornered. He tried to dismiss the accusation with a defiant glare. But such looks no longer bothered me. I was no longer intimidated by this man. My only goal was to protect Emily, my precious daughter. With a determined heart, I stood up to him and continued speaking. Emily had several healing bruises on her body.
My brother and his wife noticed them first and contacted me because we had been discussing Emily's situation.
We took the opportunity to have a conversation before you arrived, involving Emily in the discussion.
At that time, my daughter also joined us, and it seems you have been treating Emily very harshly. Just mentioning your name made her so frightened that she started hyperventilating. The stress from your treatment caused her to collapse today. She's been suffering from auditory hallucinations and flashbacks of trauma due to the severe mental anguish she's been experiencing.
Ethan glared back in frustration, clearly not expecting Emily to reveal anything because he had been controlling her through intimidation. He was panicked now that his malicious schemes were coming to light.
Your daughter might be exaggerating the story. Sure, I disciplined Emily sometimes, but it never resulted in such severe bruises. Maybe Emily exaggerated the story, and your daughter just took it too seriously.
Despite the visible signs of bruises, Ethan insisted it wasn't abuse. Everyone in the room sighed in disbelief at his ridiculous claims.
Well then, let's bring in my daughter to elaborate further. We've recorded the evidence on a voice recorder. This will ensure we can document whether the story has been exaggerated.
My brother suggested. He then called my niece from behind the curtain, and she explained what she knew about the incident.
Emily said she's been continuously threatened by her father. He told her if she didn't obey, he would make sure her mother couldn't stay at her job. He also said that if her mother didn't advance in her career, the burden would only increase. If Emily wanted to help her mother, she needed to obey him.
My niece testified. Ethan turned pale upon hearing this. He had been using severe pressure to control Emily, threatening her that if she resisted, he would ensure I was driven out of my job and that he would divorce me. Emily had been enduring this situation alone because he threatened that my life would be ruined if she disobeyed.
She has protested against her father a few times, but each time she was physically subdued. The bruises on her body were from those incidents. She asked me to keep quiet about this until she was ready to talk herself and asked for my help in documenting this.
My niece explained while everyone listened intently. Ethan's expression darkened as he realized the grave situation he was in and desperately tried to think of a way out. However, as he was trying to gather his thoughts, my niece took out her phone and started playing a recording.
This is a conversation recorded yesterday, at Emily's request. Please listen carefully to this conversation.
The recording played, revealing a disturbing exchange between Emily and Ethan in the bathroom, where Emily had left her phone in the changing area after speaking with my niece.
Obey and do as you're told. No, let go. Don't touch me.
The sounds of a struggle and Emily's frightened voice filled the shower room, followed by a dull thump and a small scream from Emily.
Is this what you want? The more you struggle, the more her happiness fades. Ugh.
That's right, just listen to me. The recording was filled with Ethan's creepy breaths and Emily trying to hold back tears. Everyone listening felt nauseated by the horrifying content. But now, we had the evidence. The cause of Emily's swollen face was Ethan, and my niece had testified to that.
Emily had been waiting for the right moment. She sent me all this evidence to keep safe.
My niece said, showing the emails on her phone that documented the abusive acts and words Ethan had subjected Emily to.
She asked me to help her because keeping a diary at home would be risky if found.
Emily! At that moment, Emily, who was supposed to be sleeping, appeared, escorted by a nurse. Caught completely off guard, Ethan panicked, unable to find an excuse. There was no way out for him now. He was utterly cornered, just as everyone had anticipated. Ethan spat out his desperate defense.
Do you have any proof that I laid hands on her? Just that audio and a child's testimony can't prove that I caused her swollen face.
A collective sigh of disbelief filled the room as Ethan demanded physical evidence. Everyone, except for me, was speechless at his poor attempt to deny the accusations. They all seemed to want to call him a hopeless idiot.
Well, there actually is concrete evidence. What?
Ethan blurted out, sure that no physical evidence could exist.
You might not know this, but there's a security camera installed at our house's entrance.
I revealed. Our home had almost been burglarized once when I was single and Emily was just a little girl. It was a terrifying experience. That day, we had been out, and an elderly neighbor spotted the scene. Though nothing came of it, it had heightened my security awareness, prompting me to install a camera near the entrance. I never felt the need to mention it to Ethan, so I kept it to myself.
So what if there's a camera? You're not saying it caught me hitting Emily, are you? On the contrary, it caught footage when you didn't hit her. What do you mean?
Ethan frowned, confused. I showed him the security footage on my phone.
Before taking a shower yesterday, Emily went out to pick up a package I had ordered online. I'd like you to see her face in this footage.
Realizing what I meant, Ethan panicked and tried to grab my phone, but my brother quickly restrained him. Everyone leaned over to see my phone, curious about what it showed.
There's nothing unusual about Emily's face just before she went to the bathroom, right?
That's right. Exactly.
Her face was normal then. It swelled up sometime after this footage and before she came out to the living room. This confirms that Ethan is responsible for her injuries.
The undeniable proof cornered Ethan completely. Overwhelmed by the situation, he suddenly displayed a deranged smile.
Yes, I did it. So what? Disciplining a disobedient child is a parent's duty, isn't it? In our days, we were taught with fists. You should be thankful it ended there.
At that moment, something in me snapped. I approached Ethan in silence, and a sharp slap echoed through the room. As Ethan fell to the floor in shock and pain, everyone was speechless.
What are you doing? You brought up your generation's way of teaching, right? I just applied your kind of education. If what I did is wrong, then it's only natural to be treated this way. Isn't that what you were explaining just now? Don't mess with me. I'm not your child. You think this is acceptable?
As Ethan tried to confront me, I stood firm and responded without flinching.
It doesn't matter whether it's a child or an adult. You did something unforgivable to Emily. What if she's traumatized for life? How will you take responsibility? Shall I drag you through the same hell? Want to experience the terror of a woman scorned?
Ethan, perhaps not expecting me to be so furious, recoiled at my intense anger.
I will never forgive you. The scars you've left on Emily's body and mine will never fade. Men like you should be erased from society. You made our daughter suffer, so don't think you can get away with it.
Hearing this, Ethan's shoulders slumped, and he stopped resisting. Thus, Ethan was reported to the police and arrested. Soon after, I filed for divorce. Despite his objections from jail, everything was settled smoothly through a lawyer. The evidence was overwhelming, allowing us to claim substantial compensation. The company fired Ethan, and thanks to the CEO's efforts, our family was shielded from media harassment. In contrast, Ethan's life was ruined. His parents also suffered due to the publicized news, and even after leaving prison, he was hounded by the media. He was effectively erased from society and now lives aimlessly. Since then, our lives have regained peace. Emily, though she was initially distressed, has been supported lovingly by my niece, her friends, and my brother and his wife. She started junior high school and is now enjoying time with her friends and deepening her bond with me.
Mom, I don't remember my real mother, but I'm so glad you were her best friend. Thank you for caring for me as if I were your own. You might think so, but to me, you are my daughter, not like my daughter. You will always be our child.
It's like having two moms. Watching Emily speak with innocent cheerfulness, blushing slightly, I resolved to protect that smile at all costs. I will never let her suffer again. This is my firm promise to myself.